Hi guys, welcome to Chapter 3, Discover Your Values and Goals. This chapter is going to talk about your core values and how to identify them. Kind of the chapter, I'm not going to go to it into lecture. Chapter book will go into kind of assessing your current life stage. We'll talk about benefits and rewards of goal setting, why they're so important. We'll talk about the SMART goal model that you should be using. And then you can use all of this to start brainstorming your long term, midterm, and short term goals. So you can start creating a personal action plan, which you can see more about in the book. All right, this is one of my favorite values if you watch Parks and Rec. Never half ass two things, whole ass one thing. And it just makes me laugh that essentially it's, putting in your all and not spreading yourself too thin so that everything is constantly juggling and you're not being effective. And that is a value. It's a value that I definitely use, and so it makes me laugh. So, what are your core values? Your core values are the compass that helps you make decisions. They're the things that you believe in that are fundamentally important. They help determine your priorities, and they're measures by which you judge yourself and, of course, judge others. The thing that's key about core values is they're very specific to you. They may not be shared, or at least not in the same manner with your classmates, your coworkers, and sometimes even your family. Core values are very, very personal, and so that's what drives us. And it makes it really, really important that we understand what our values are and that they're not always going to match. And so we talk about judging others. And sometimes that can be as simple as, okay, our values don't match. This isn't going to be a good friendship, relationship, working relationship. And then there's the overreach. Your values don't match, so you're a terrible person, then I'm not. That's not what we're talking about. But it is important that we understand our values because typically we tend to surround ourselves with people who kind of match our core values. Here are some quotes that I pulled from the interwebs. Different quotes about values specifically. My personal favorite is this one here in the middle. I love Jon Stewart. If you don't stick to your values when they're being tested, they're not values, they're hobbies. And that's really important because I do see that as a professor in my courses. Likely all of you have a value of education. You believe in education, personal growth. And I was this student when very early on when I first came to college. I was in college because I was told I needed to go to college and not because I really valued that kind of growth or education at the time. And the result of that was I did the bare minimum. I kept my grades reasonable, and then I kind of fell off the radar because it wasn't anything that I valued. And so when things got hard with college and things started, progressively, you're getting challenged more, I quit, right? Because it was a hobby for me, it wasn't an actual value. When I went back as a working adult and as a mother, there were still a lot of challenges, and I did the sacrifices that I needed. I prioritized the way that I needed, and I adjusted my time to make room for studying, writing papers, and everything I needed to do to school because it was a value of mine at this point. It was something that was a very, very important priority for me. And so those things just naturally started to move around for me when I needed to put that on my calendar. I didn't question it. I didn't go back and forth. Do I really want to take this Saturday to write the paper? I knew I had to do it. And that's when it became a value for me and not a hobby because I was able to rise to those challenges. So assessing your core values, things that you should see to know what your like deep core values are, has to be freely chosen. So like I said, when a student is in college because somebody else told them that is somebody else's value, it may not be theirs. It is not freely chosen for that student. Like I said, for me, initially, it wasn't my value because somebody else told me. When I went back, it was absolutely my value. So it has to be something that I, as the person, choose. Nobody can give me a value. It's prized, cherished, and considered precious and publicly affirmed when appropriate. So when somebody would ask me what I thought of school, I was, so stressed out, but loving it at the same time that I was happy to talk about it. People knew why I was in school, what I was going to do with school. It was easy to talk about because it was prized and cherished by me. And then it should be modeled for others. So people saw me going to school and they knew there was no question that education was a value. If your value is family or kindness, any of those, I could meet you for 5 minutes and probably kind of figure out some of your values, because it's just a piece of who you are and it flows out of you naturally because you're modeling it for others. Those are your core values. So it's easy to see. If you're taking on somebody else's value, it may not be easy to see because it is not your natural core value. Here are some links. I believe these are also in the textbook for you if you want to go a little bit further and start identifying some of your values. It's a good idea to, everything we're going to talk about with goal setting, what you're going to do with your degree, where you want to work, comes out of these values. Values are really kind of the compass that guides you. So think about Waze or Google Maps, right? You have to identify a route, but that route can't be identified till you know where you're going. And that's what our goal setting is sort of going to do. It's going to give you that destination, and then your value is going to determine how you get there. Do you take the longer route so you can avoid the mess of traffic? Do you take the shorter route because you're willing to pay the fees to fly down the toll road? That's going to be decided by you and your values. But you've got to have that destination in mind, which is what we're going to talk about when we go into goal setting. So benefits of goal setting. They're going to provide that direction and focus. So we sort of just talked about that. They will increase motivation because as you develop these short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, it helps you see that progress. It's really easy to get bogged down when you're working towards, let's say, graduating, right? Whether it's a 2 or 4 year degree. You guys are in your first or second semester, so graduation seems like forever away. And as you're going through classes, if you're not looking at your goals and you're not reassessing, it feels like you're just stuck. It feels like you're going through the same cycle. So having these goals that you're accomplishing, whether it be weekly, monthly, semesterly, yearly, gives you that progress. You can see that you're moving forward. In that, it'll help reduce your anxiety and stress. We'll talk about stress management towards the end of the semester. But what I can tell you a lot right now, for a lot of students, myself included, anxiety and stress kind of come down when we're just focused on all the things in the big picture. When we sit down and break it down into little goals, and we'll talk more about it in time management, break out our time and see that will just automatically reduce your anxiety and stress because you'll have that plan. You'll have something that kind of makes sense for you. Really breaking things down. So when you look at all your syllabus, it's really easy to get overwhelmed and anxious. But when you sit down and make a semester plan and you see when all your exams are going to line up, all your major assignments, that will reduce that anxiety and help you develop some of those goals to knock out throughout your semester. It's going to help you focus. We'll talk about time and resources as well in chapter 4. Get faster results. I really just think that's seeing the progress. Same with the improved performance. The biggest, this last one, measure progress and success. That part is really huge because you have to be able to reassess. When you're goal setting and you're looking at those goals, like completing a course can be a goal. But if you complete a course with an F, you haven't actually accomplished anything. That is a chance for you to reassess. All of your grades to me are a gauge. They're not the end all, but they're one way to sort of monitor your progress. Not that you have to go for the 4.0 GPO if that 4.0 GPA, excuse me, if that's not part of your plan. But obviously you're looking to pass courses. And so are you passing courses at the speed and the grades that you want? And if not, why not? Those are learning opportunities. Is that an opportunity to start visiting the tutoring center? Is that an opportunity to start reevaluating our strengths and weaknesses? Is it an opportunity, and I have done this, to look at our schedule for the next semester? I definitely took an 8 a.m. college algebra course when I was at Texas State, which was Southwestern at the time, and I lived off campus. I very rarely went to an 8 a.m. college course that was going to take me an hour to get to. That was a bad call, knowing I'm not a morning person. So sometimes it's looking at the way that we schedule build. When is our most effective time to be in course or to be studying? All of those are opportunities out of these setbacks that you might have and out of measuring and monitoring your goals. So again, I've kind of mentioned this. You have different types of goals. So you have your short term, which, I think these are kind of self-explanatory, right? It's going to be the next couple of days, weeks. Your midterm are going to be more within the year, maybe within the semester, 6 months to 2 years. And then your long term is your big picture. It is your graduation, your career goals, all those things. But the important part is all these goals need to feed into each other. If you have long-term goals, so we'll use an easy, I'm going to transfer and graduate with a 4-year degree. Your short-term and medium-term goal should be talking to your advisor, meeting with a transfer specialist, looking at a transfer plan, so that the courses you're taking here, make sure that they align. Do you know what GPA requirement you need for that school or schools? You know how many credits that they'll accept. Some will take all the way up to 60 credit hours, and some might only take 12. And so you don't want to do 30 credit hours here just to have to repeat courses there. So maybe a short-term goal. If you haven't done any of this, that's totally cool. Your short-term goal might be starting some of that research. By the end of this semester, have some transfer plans that you've downloaded, know your GPA requirements, so that maybe next semester you start meeting with your advisor or a transfer specialist. Those can be short-term goals that can turn into medium-term goals. When to start talking to that 4-year college, when to start applying, when to start working on those essays that will feed into your long-term goal of transferring and then completing a 4-year degree. So those are just some examples of things that you can start thinking about as you develop your goals. So we went through examples. I forgot this slide was in here. So you can kind of see maybe it's the GPA, knowing what kind of degree you're going to get, being accepted. So completing coursework for this week can be a goal, getting an A or a B on your upcoming exam, and writing a draft of your research paper. This is a really good one, the research paper, because as we'll talk about later in the semester, writing happens in drafts and stages. And a goal cannot be to write your paper an hour before it's due and hit submit. Please don't do that. So you can have several goals with a paper, especially if maybe writing isn't your strength, about short-term goals. All right, tonight I'm going to write my outline, tomorrow write my rough draft, and etc. There are different types of goals that you can have. In any of these, you probably have goals in several of them. And again, they're going to flow from your values, so they're going to be very, very specific to you. I use a lot of examples from career and academic because that seems to be the overlap for most of us in this class. These ones get really, really personal and specific, so I don't go into them as much. But you can use the same formats to develop goals for all of them, however they make sense to you. So take a few minutes on that note. Go ahead and pause the video here and write down about 8 to 10 of your goals. And it can be anything. Write it on a scratch sheet of paper. 8 to 10, they can be short-term, long-term, medium-term. They can be personal, financial, work, academic, any goals that you have. Take a minute to kind of draft those out. Definitely pause the video, because when I do this in class, take students quite a few minutes, some of them, because 8 to 10 kind of becomes a lot when you're not thinking about it. All right, now that you've written out 8 to 10 goals, here's some things to think about when you go back and look at them. Do they reflect your core values? So if you haven't taken the time, take a minute to think about, what are your core values? What are the ones that meet the 3 criteria we talked about? Freely chosen, prized and cherished, and modeled for others. What core values fit that? And do your goals fit into that? Do they make sense? Are they clear and effective? How much of a plan do you have behind them? Do you think that there's something that can be done this week, this semester, or are they what I call New Year's resolutions? Meaning that, January 1st, we all wake up and we make our New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to quit my job. And then we don't think about it again for 365 days later, till January 1st rolls around again. That is a New Year's resolution to me, and that is a wish that you put out in the universe. That is not a goal. Does your goal have a plan? Are there things that you can do to start working towards that goal? And then how will you monitor your progress? So again, if your goal is to transfer, and that's one of the ones you listed, how are you going to monitor that? When are you going to transfer? What things do you need to do leading up to transfer? And that's the other thing to look about is your 8 to 10 goals. How many of your long-term goals have short-term and medium-term goals that flow into them? And if they don't, start developing those this semester. So like I said, with transfer, You should have an idea of when you plan to transfer. You should have an idea of when the application process starts, when you have to write essays. You should have an idea of the GPA that you need and how many classes you're transferring. All of those should be listed out in your short-term, medium-term goals that help you get to that goal of transferring. All right. So your book had a cute little YouTube video. I hope you watched about this, but this is the format that you want to put your goals in. This is the most effective format. The biggest thing I can say, we're going to go through each one, but make sure that you stay flexible. We talk about barriers to goal, and we talk about crisis is a big one, and distractions. Distractions we have a little bit more control over, right? So when Netflix auto plays and takes us into that next episode, and what we meant to be an hour turns into 8 hours, we can control that. But then a crisis hits, and it will hit you while you're in college, because that's just how life works. Being flexible in your goals can help kind of manage some of that. So ideally, timing. So I've had students who've needed to take a semester off, and they've just adjusted the timetable part of their goal, and that's fine. As long as they come back. You might have to, if you're dealing with work-life balance and you have to work, maybe you slow that goal, adjust again that timetable, and take less classes and take a little bit longer to graduate so that you can manage working, because you've got to eat, right? All of those can come into that. You are your own time frame, but you still need to keep this format even if you're making adjustments so that you can stay on track. So the goal should be specific. Again, a goal can't just be, I want to transfer. That's nice, but you need to be a little bit more specific. Where are you going to transfer? And if you don't know that yet, then you need a smaller goal that's going to be, I'm going to research 5 schools a week or a month to start me processing where I'm going to transfer, to help me answer that question. Then you should have sub goals out of that, so that ultimately, eventually, you develop the goal. I will transfer to Texas State University by June of 2022, or whatever you want to do. That's an example. A goal that I always use as an example of class is, I want to go to Paris. Okay, so that's not quite yet a goal. It's nice, but I need to have a plan. I need to be more specific about it. When am I going to go to Paris? And also, this goal or this example assumes that I can go to Paris, because we all know we can't right now. But assuming that travel restrictions are lifted and I can go, I want to go to Paris. So things that I need to think about to make this specific: how much money do I need? Where am I going to stay? What do I need while I'm there? All of that has to come into this goal of, I want to go to Paris. All right, so how measurable in this? So usually when we develop this goal in class, we start with the money. That's usually the most important part. So I would have short-term goals of researching maybe when is the best time to go to Paris, and then does that coincide with when I can take vacation? And then I can develop a budget of how much money that I need, and do I need to put money aside each month for 6 months? Let's say my goal is to go to Paris in 6 months, and I need to set aside $250 a month for 6 months so that I can afford travel and staying in Paris. That has to be measurable, because I can watch that bank account and see if I'm on target for my goal. I can watch plane tickets to see if there's any changes there, booking, all of those things. But I can definitely, the easiest thing for me to measure is that money into that account. Is it attainable? Does it make sense for me to be able to go? That's really something we'll talk about realistic in a minute. But again, assuming pre-COVID, I can go to Paris. I can buy a plane ticket and I can physically go, would make it attainable. I don't have any reasons that I can't, as long as I think about what all is going on in my life. Like, I have a daughter. Am I taking her, or am I getting somebody to watch her? That would determine if that goal is attainable or not. Most goals are attainable as long as we have that strong plan. So maybe for me, attainable is, I can go to Paris, but maybe I need longer than 6 months. Maybe I need 8 months to get a little bit more of a cushion in my money. That would still make it attainable. Again, if I had this goal right now in this world, it would not be attainable, because we can't leave this country. When travel restrictions are lifted, then it becomes attainable. So that's kind of the difference there. It's really similar to realistic, which is our next one. And for me, for this example, the realistic would be, I set a number of $250 a month that I'm going to set aside. Two things to consider for realistic right there is one, does that cover everything I need, the cost of travel for Paris, France? And two, can I afford to put that money aside because I still have to eat and I still have bills to pay? If I have to put that money aside and I can't pay my mortgage or my electricity, it is not a realistic goal. Obviously, having my housing will be more important than me going to Paris. So then I have to look at, do I have time to pick up a second job, right? A side hustle, working for Favor or something like that to make that extra money. Do I have the time to do that? If I don't, then it becomes a not realistic goal and I'm going to quit after a week because I'm going to be exhausted and burnt out. So that's the other thing. If it's not realistic, can I lower the amount and then adjust my time? Maybe I need a full year to save up that money. And that can be done, and I can still manage my goal. And that makes it realistic. I think this is the one that gets students the most. I have students that try to go to school full time and work full time to meet their goals, and that's usually not realistic because they get exhausted and they burn out too fast. And then they don't quit their jobs. They never quit their jobs because they can't. So they quit school and they walk away from their goals. So this realistic thing to me is the most important part of this whole thing, is to make sure that we can fully commit to, with our lifestyles, with everything we have to manage, that to hit that goal. And that's why each goal needs to be specific to you. There's not a blanket goal. It's got to match whatever is going on with you. And then finally, timetable. So again, talking about the Paris, France, looking at how much money it's going to cost me to get there and how much money I can afford to set aside would help me develop my timetable. And then maybe I need to push it back if I'm not reaching that goal. Or if a crisis hits and suddenly maybe I have medical expenses, so all the money I had originally saved aside has to go to that. Then I adjust my timetable. It doesn't mean I can never go to France. It might mean that timetable needs to be lengthened. This helps you stay on track because you can see, like I said, I can check that bank account every month and I can look and see how much my balance is, and it'll let me know if I'm on track or if it needs to be adjusted. Transfer, again, is an easy example because there's specific times when you can transfer and when you can apply. So that should match into your timetable to keep that goal realistic. I like this goal, complete my draft 1 week before the deadline. Love that. Whenever you have assignments, tests, end of semester stuff, that already has a built-in timetable for you when you're making those short-term goals. Because at the end of the day, we make these goals. So my goal is to go to Paris. And there's a big difference between going to Paris, France, and going to Paris, Texas. And only one of those would I be able to afford if I don't have a SMART goal set up for it. Bottom. All right, so putting your goals into action. This is just stating things positively. It's much easier to do something than to stop doing something. This goes back to that growth mindset, right? Having the idea, you may not like it, but you can do it. And you just got to set that goal and get your mind around that goal. When you focus on it, you increase. When you don't focus on something, that's all you think about. So think about when we're procrastinating and we've got a paper coming up and we kind of get obsessive about it, right? Because we're trying not to focus on it, but we know it's there and we kind of get obsessive, but that's not productive. So focus on what you want to get done. It's easy for me. I try to get the stuff I really don't want to do done first, and then I can get them off my plate. Write down your goals. It kind of makes it real and tangible. If you're a to-do list person, absolutely use that. I put stuff in my task on my Google email so that I can remember. I'm always afraid I'm going to lose something. You can write them down, like put them up somewhere, put Post-its up to help keep you reminded. That's really going to help with your motivation. And we're not talking about like every single goal ever, but maybe your long-term and some of your medium-term goals to help you keep on track. Just so that you can remember what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, and it keeps that moving forward. It keeps that momentum going for you. Make an action plan, whatever that looks like for you. If you go to our transfer website, there's a transfer plan that you can fill out. You can work with your advisor, a transfer specialist, an academic coach on all of this. This helps kind of, like you said, keep on focus, keeps you an idea you want to graduate by this time so you can start applying for jobs by this time if that's what works for you. Again, transfer is a big one with a timetable. Or if you're looking at our programs, our health science programs also all have their internal application with their own deadlines. All of that should feed into what you're doing. Most of them have GPA requirements, things like that. Use it to create a to-do list, however formal you want to be with that, as long as you're using something to keep track, which kind of goes writing out those individual little steps. Again, the biggest part of that is so you can see the progress and keep the momentum going and you don't get bogged down and overwhelmed by all the stuff you still have left to do. You can see all the stuff that you've already done. Absolutely share your goals with others, support, encouragement, accountability, just so that you have that support, somebody to help you keep on track, because it's easy. It's easy to be like, I don't want to do that anymore, because it seems hard, and kind of avoid it, right? So get somebody that'll be like, you can do it, here, let's go. And then, of course, reward yourself for a job well done. Absolutely take time each semester, every year, whatever it is that works for you, to give yourself like the kudos that you deserve, because none of this is easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So don't forget to give yourself credit for everything that you're accomplishing. All right, and that's all I have for chapter 3, working on those goals. So if you get some time, if you didn't get a chance during this, keep working on those goals, keep working on those values, so that everything that you're doing with ACC, with whatever you do outside of ACC, makes sense. No one expects you to have all of the answers and all these perfectly polished goals right now. Again, you're in the beginning of your journey, but just think about these, use these as guides, use the resources there to help you, and we'll do some more stuff this semester that will go back to your goal setting. And in fact, our final project will be a goal setting project, so not getting away from that. But keep practicing them, keep thinking about them. They're just going to help you as you move forward with each semester. Thanks.